Oh, sure. Okay, welcome everyone. We have a quorum. This is the January 13th Facilities and Finance Subcommittee meeting.
Great. So I'm sorry, I just don't have the book in front of me. If you could just
well,
call up
yeah,
the first, yeah, go ahead.
sure, no problem. Okay, so let's look first on the agenda.
I can start it, Melissa. So the first item
Yeah.
on the agenda is a discussion regarding repairs to the basketball court for the admin
Yep.
basketball court. We're joined by Ed Bello and Dan Ryan. I think they're both from a WBA, or one of them is from Full Court Peace. So I'm just going to pass it over to them for them to lead this discussion.
Great, thank you.
All right, I can tee it up. I'm here as a Parks and Rec partner of Dan and the WBA, and then yes, I'm also associated with Full Court Peace, as I have a son who is in the high school and the president of the club as well. So kind of representing several hats, and partnering with Dan, who is on the board of the WBA, and very interested in improving the basketball experience of the kids in town, which is great. I'll tee it up, and Dan, I'll hand it over to you. Okay. So the idea is overall Full Court Peace. To back up for those of you that don't know Full Court Peace, it's an organization that was founded by a former Weston basketball player and a former Weston high school graduate, and a person who grew up, Mike Evans, who grew up in town. He couldn't make it today, unfortunately. And the idea is to foster unity, communication, and integration in our communities via basketball and sports. It was founded in Northern Ireland, and he brought it over to the United States, and now does programs throughout the country and throughout the world. The club supports it at the high school by raising funds, and then the club also works on rehabbing courts in different parts of the state, in New York City, and like I said, even across the world in different countries. The idea that the club has, which is a wonderful idea in my humble opinion, is to rehab the court in town as part of a project to rehab a court in Danbury. So they're going to use the funds that they're raising to rehab the court in town to also rehab a court in Danbury. And the idea is to bring the kids from Danbury to Weston to help us here rehab the court, and then our kids, boys and girls, are going to go up to Danbury and rehab that court. So it's really one project to support two communities in Connecticut, which is really neat. And ultimately, the idea within Weston is to, like I said, improve the court here, a court that is used by our community quite a bit, has a lot of opportunity to be even better and be more of a central part of the community. And at that, Dan, maybe I'll hand it over to you to talk about some of the vision and some of the thoughts you guys have as WBA.
Perfect. Thank you for the time. I appreciate being here. So WBA is the Weston Basketball Association, and we run the travel program for the 5th through 8th graders in town. And what we would like to do is organize a fundraiser to pay for this resurfacing and updating of the courts. The fundraiser will, like Ed said, will also raise enough money to resurface a to be determined court somewhere probably in Danbury, so kind of local, and it'll be a community event. So our kids will resurface the courts here, and then we will go to Danbury and do that too. Hopefully, ideally with the people from Danbury via Full Court Peace as the organizer and vehicle. We'd also love to, because Ed said a bunch of things about bringing community together, fostering community through basketball. We'd love to consider renaming the admin courts to the Union or something similar, just to always bring the community together to play basketball. Also, I noticed that there's a plaque of AJ Sinha, who is a boy who passed away many years ago before I moved here, and just maybe involving his parents to carry on the memory. The only thing that we need is kind of a clear path, just a go ahead that, yeah, raise the money and let's get this going. I don't know when it'll be calendared. We just need also, one of the challenges was the regular maintenance of the drainage at the courts, which I think Philip may have taken care of. Thank you. But just to get it on a regular routine, because if we do resurface, we'd hate for it to fill up with water and freeze or just be stagnant, and it would damage however we decide to resurface. And just really, we want to figure out how we can proceed with everyone's blessing.
This is terrific. What's the cost?
I believe it will be it depends, but it should be somewhere in the $15,000 to $25,000 range. I'm not sure. I got a proposal from Full Court Peace a while ago that involved the 2 courts, but that was 6 or 8 months ago. So I'm sure inflation and all that, we'd probably have to redo it.
Yeah.
But the Board of Education would not have to pay anything. We just want to know what the blessing is and what the workflow is to get it forward.
And one of the ways that we can defray cost is the company it's a professional company who does courts for sports courts and refinishing sports courts. Yeah. Steve, the owner of that company is a former Weston High School graduate as well. So they're donating the finishing of the court, the resurfacing and sealing of the court. That's being donated as well. So that helps defray that full $25,000 because that's not going to be what we're going to raise.
Who's that, Ed?
I can find out, Lisa. Mike told me the name, but I can't remember. But I can get the name for you and follow up.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I mean, Mike used to be my student years ago.
Yeah.
I'm old. There's just something I want to raise, and I want to raise it in a way that doesn't take away from what you're trying to do. Because I'm looking at the court right now. I actually rearranged my office so I could look out and see the kids. And it's used, I can attest, all the time, and it's great. So it's a $25,000 investment. This site is still up for discussion about what to do with it with the facilities in the town, correct? I just would hate to invest it, and then what if this becomes something else in 5 years?
Well,
or do we not worry about it?
Well, I don't want to make a trite statement that we don't worry about it, but the fact is, we really haven't. For Dan and Ed, I mean, for your edification, the tennis courts are located on wetlands, which makes maintenance. Which if maintain them more frequently, and then also the town is through this ARPA grant is going to build. I think it's 2 pickleball courts, and the athletic director had the good idea of maybe we should make this area that Lisa's looking at over as a sports complex, and so but it hasn't progressed beyond that. Beyond that conversation. In the interim, to everyone's comments, the basketball courts are used all the time. So, if the idea ultimately is to turn that area into some form of a sports complex, which would encompass basketball as well, that'd be terrific. But in the interim, if we can resurface the courts, with minimal to no capital on part of the Board of Education, I don't see why we wouldn't want to move forward with that. I don't know how you feel, Melissa, or
well,
Peter.
If I could just respond to Lisa. Lisa, I appreciate your concern, but even if it's 5 years or more, that's 5 years of good time spent. I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and whatever the cost is, we really have to divide it by 2 because it also involves resurfacing in Danbury, and I think it's going to be an incredible community building event for Weston and over there. And then maybe we can get some tournaments going. I don't know. There's so many different options that we can do. That whether it's 5 years or 10 years, knowing that it may change, let's make the most of it so that our kids can grow and feel a stronger sense of community.
Sure. I mean, it kind of reminds me of our builders trips. You're building in a community and working together. And this is a wonderful way to expand. I love the idea of helping in Danbury, all that. I just felt like I needed to say something in my superintendent hat. If I put on my hat of what I would love, I would love to do it. I just need to, as my fiduciary responsibility to the town is to bring that up. And that also, it was one of the considerations of putting a K-1 school here. again, I'm not going to comment on that.
Right.
I kind of agree with you. As long as we know going into it that long-term it might be something else, I think it would be great. So much goes on out there. The little things that you see on a daily basis, like I can still see that little preschooler, he's 4 years old, Teddy Savitsky, standing there watching the boys. And I said, Teddy, you want to play? And those boys said, come on over, Teddy. And these high school kids are letting him shoot the basket. You know, how do you put a price tag on things like that?
Yeah.
So,
It's a great
you know,
spot.
I would certainly support it. Like I said, I just wanted to mention it as sort of part of my responsibility.
And just from a procedural point of view, Phil or Lisa, what's the responsibility in moving this forward on the Board of Education's part?
I mean, if I had to guess, and Phil, jump in. So you want to have a fundraiser with the intent of doing this. Melissa, jump in too. I would think that we would have to put that out there to the Board of Ed so that they know. Eventually, you got to accept the gift, correct? We have to accept the gift, like we're accepting some gifts in at the January meeting. Nothing like this, but as far as the fundraiser and all of that, I mean, I would think it was informational. I don't know if it needs to be anything else, Melissa and Phil.
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. Yeah,
Yeah, I think what I would like to do is just, if we do a full court piece and a WBA fundraiser, because I think there'll be two, correct, Ed?
Yeah.
So we just don't want to say, hey, everyone, we're going to raise money for these 501c3s, and then for some reason we can't make the gift happen. It's like, what do we do? So I just want to make sure we have a clear path to being able to resurface and have the drains maintained.
Yeah, from our perspective, we can definitely put that on a routine just to have them cleared. In terms of procedure, I think if you guys move forward, I think once you have done your fundraiser and you've decided that you want to move forward, we can present that as a gift, and I think that's the only thing that would need to happen. It's just we will just present that as a gift from Full Court Peace to the Board of Education.
Right.
Well, and
Perfect.
you know, just kind of getting ahead, I think that would be great if Mike Evans, you know, I have a podcast, What's Up in the Weston Public Schools. This will be a perfect podcast.
Great idea.
And you could help use it for your fundraiser. I'm happy to interview him as
That's a great idea.
an alum, talk
Great.
about the project, all of that. So should we bring this, is it too premature to bring it up at this month's board meeting?
I don't think there's a need to do that at this time. I think we wait until we have the gift in place, and then we'll do it then. I don't necessarily view this any different from any other gift that we receive, for example, from the PTO or from WEF. You know, we know it's happening, and when we have it, we'll just make that we'll just accept the gift at the meeting.
My only concern though is if they're collecting money under this project, I think we have to at least publicly give a heads up that it's taking place.
Lisa,
Look,
look, why don't we just add it to why don't we just make the board aware of it at this next meeting? It'll be, you know, a short conversation, and, you know, and it's going to be a terrific gift to the community, but let's just make everyone aware of it.
Put it in your superintendent's update or something. Don't make
Yeah.
it an agenda item that is going to draw.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Right,
like
right.
a committee update, just a quick 1 minute. Okay.
I would just, as the WBA, and I think maybe for Full Court Peace as well, if we do go forward, I'm not going to say if, when we do go forward with the fundraiser, I would just love to have something like, yeah, please proceed. We'll accept this as a gift at some point. That'll just give me that it's something in writing that we can actually do it, because I just don't want to raise funds and then not be able to do it for some reason.
Okay.
Cool.
Sure.
And what do you think your timing is on going out for the fundraiser? Just
Well, ideally, the sooner the better,
Makes sense.
and we'll have to coordinate with Full Court Peace. As far as when the resurfacing gets done, Full Court Peace is really busy, so I don't know when we can get on their schedule. That's a whole other question. So
Yeah.
we need to kind of have a path forward, then we can kind of come up with milestones, and I'm happy to include you guys in the conversation.
The team, the Full Court Peace Club, will start fundraising as soon as it sounds like we have the green light today. That's what I'm taking away. You know, I'll give the green light to the kids to run with it. and they'll work with their sponsor at the school to start 3-on-3 tournaments and do their fundraising. I mean, WBA realistically is going to do a bigger part of it, to be fair, given they have a much bigger, broader group, but the club will start ASAP.
So I'll mention it in the Supers report, the Supers update in January, Tuesday. And, just mention it. And then as you proceed, I can always reiterate it in an update and we can get the word out.
Cool.
And then kind of lay low. And like Phil said, then just accept the gift.
Fantastic.
It's terrific.
It's great.
Well, thanks for doing this. This is
Thank
just
you.
great for the
You
community.
just made my Friday the 13th. Thank you.
Undoubtedly. Thank you. It's exciting. It's such a great community spot. I think I know a lot of people will be excited. Yeah, it's wonderful to get your support.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a great amenity, to the overall community. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, you
Thank
too.
you. Hey, perhaps we can work on a permanent garage too for my golf cart. It's right over there, Phil.
Okay. On to the next. An update on the facilities and facilities and ground maintenance.
Yeah, how you doing? I just want to give a quick update on myself. Soon after our last meeting on the 16th, I had a routine medical procedure that turned into a cardiac event. So I've been very limited in my time here. I assure you, I'm on the right road to healing.
Good.
And, everything will be fine. But I haven't been able to do any of the RFPs for the last capital projects, and a couple of things have been held up. I will aggressively start attacking these and chipping them off of our list. So that's just the first thing I wanted to say. We have one little incident at this point at the middle school. The hot water system for the kitchen is on its way out. We've received pricing at this point, about $3,000 to revamp the entire system, strictly just for the kitchen, not for the school, not for the bathrooms, just strictly kitchen. So that's the one thing that has come up in the last couple of days. We tried to do a custom maintenance repairs and it didn't work. One update I do have on our capital from last year came in for the door extension exit for the intermediate school and the window for the high school. Unfortunately, it's still kind of in limbo. Kerry, who is running the project, his wife has serious medical issues. He has to go out of state for an extended period of time. I'm going to meet him this morning. I'm going to meet him next week to go over the project. He's going to introduce me to another gentleman, Rob, who will take over the project. So that should start moving along within the next month or so. Should be complete. The window for the high school nurse's office came in incorrect, so that needed to be reordered. So he's going to get lead time for me on that. I should have that, whether that's going to be this afternoon when I meet up with him or early next week.
Just another point on that. So the door at the West has been installed. We're just talking about some cosmetic finishes on that door. And at the high school for the nurse's window, we have already had the cutout, so we've already started. We're just waiting for the correct window, just to kind of clear things out.
Well, I just wanted to say, Mike, I'm shocked to hear that, and I'm glad that you look and you're feeling better, and please take all the time you need. So
No, I appreciate Phil and Lisa. They were very very accommodating with this, and I'm on the road to recovery. I have one more procedure to go through, which should be pretty quick. So I'm okay. And like I said, I will aggressively start attacking all these projects that are lingering. I just don't want anyone to think that I've been sitting on our hands, not doing anything. That's all.
No, we would never, Mike. You're a gift to this.
Thank you. Now, did you guys get the attachment of? It was a picture from. It looks like a large pump. Andrew, did you share that with everybody, or is that just on my notes?
No, everybody should have a copy.
Okay, so this was the middle school project. This was the rebuilding of all the heating and cooling pumps inside the school, whether it was the large pump, small pump. So this is one of the larger pumps. And I just know that there was a lot of discussion whether we wanted to do this, and we didn't want to do it. So Sid Harvey's was kind enough to make a kind of a PowerPoint And I kind of picked through some of the pictures to show you. So this is just the process of how they go about doing it. After it gets picked up, we take the pump out, it gets shipped down to South Carolina, their plant, and they take it all apart. So this is how extensive the project is. They literally take the entire thing apart. If it needs new parts, they're put in, replaced. As you can see, the first picture to the last picture, everything has been completely revamped, repainted. It looks brand new. And that was a project. To rebuild is new. The one thing with the rebuild is new with Sid Harvey is it's guaranteed for 5 years. And we would never get a guarantee warranty from any manufacturer over a year. Even if we were at the luckiest, would be 2 years. So this project was very advantageous. I'm glad we were given the approval to go ahead and to pull it off. And this will be all our pumps. I believe it's 15 pumps. The pump you see here, we have 2 of those, and then they just gradually go down in size for different areas of the school. So I just wanted you guys to see kind of a play-by-play of what's done with the project.
And Mike, just remind me, we removed those pump in-house, correct?
Yeah, we remove and install in-house. They provide all the gasket material and connection material. They just take it off of our hands, off of a pallet, and they build the whole thing. We take it back and install. Yes.
Yeah, and I asked that question just to point out that we're extremely fortunate to have the team that we currently have, because we truly have a team of talented guys who do a lot of the work that we have. And if we didn't have these guys, a lot of the products that we do have, it would cost us significantly more.
That's really all I have for you guys for an update for facilities maintenance and grounds. It's been relatively quiet, knock on wood, and let's hope it continues that way.
Okay. Well, thanks for the pictures. It's really quite remarkable when you see the before to the after.
It's an incredible turnaround from what they were.
Yeah.
I would not have thought possible. So,
Steve, you're muted.
Sorry, having technical issues today. Athletic field maintenance, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me start off with this one. So Melissa knows that we've been going back and forth with this decision as to whether or not we want to keep it. This item is in our budget, but I think we have to talk about it here as well. We've been going back and forth whether or not we should keep it to a third party. Should we bring it in-house? And I think we've gotten to the point, we've discussed this, amongst ourselves, myself, Mike, and also Chuck Carboni. And we're at the point where we do believe that we can take this field over and maintain it to the level that we expect. Currently, with the fields and stuff like Chuck is at this field almost every single day, and he's on the third party, on the contractors, like every single day. He's telling them what they're not doing, what they should be doing, and stuff like that. So we're at a point where we think we have with the addition of one additional personnel, we would be able to adequately maintain the field. And just to point out that prior to the incident that occurred a few years ago, we were maintaining all of the fields. So it's not just Refson that we're talking about. It's all the softball courts and everything else. I think a total of 6. If you split Refson between JV and varsity, we're pretty much at 7. We constantly talk about it. I even had a conversation with Chuck about it yesterday, and he said, "Listen, I am confident that we can do this." So we wanted us to make the recommendation, just to move forward with this. I do want to point out that although we have had a third party, and we'll be taking it over, Refson Field is not a perfect field. And we do continue to have some drainage concerns. We're meeting with a consultant to do a soil sample, and just to see if there's anything else that we can do just to improve the drainage of that field itself. But outside of the drainage, I think we've come a long way. A lot of money was put into Refson just to get it to the point where it is right now. We have, I think we just did, we added clay to the fields. We pretty much added clay to all of our fields. And just so that everyone knows, the recommendation to add the clay and to mix it with what we have came from the recommendation of Chuck Carboni, which is our grounds foreman. So we're at a point where we think we're good to go to bring it back in-house.
Well, Steve, you weren't on the Board of Ed when we went through the switch out of in-house care to the third party. There was some related public commentary and concern about it. So there's a little bit of a history there, but I think, what I'm hearing from Phil and Mike is that, we're learning and evolving, and that now that this makes sense to do this. And I think we have to trust our professionals and the people that we have on our staff that think that they can do this, and see how it goes.
Well, no, I've been here long enough to have been on the journey of Revson Field for I think as long as I've been here. So, I share your comment, Melissa. If we think we can do it in-house, then we should go forward as best we can.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for doing that. So I know it's on the budget, but we start to maintain the fields, or we start to get the fields ready for, I think in March. So we would need to post and hire someone. So I'm just going to take this as an approval to move ahead with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you much.
I'm sorry, is there more?
No.
And the next side, any questions, Melissa or Peter? Or, sorry, I'm preempting everybody. So the next item number 4, is a discussion on the bid results regarding paving inspection engineering services.
Right. So we did do the bid, just for engineering services, just to do the evaluation of pretty much all the asphalt services on campus, not just the parking lots. So we got results from three engineers, Beta Group, WMC, and WSP. Prices range from $17,500 up to $22,000 just for that analysis, and also for the capital planning forecast. We are recommended that we do give the project to Beta Group, who's also the lowest bidder. And not only so much that they're the lowest bidder but also because they're currently the vendor, the engineer that the town uses. I do believe that I had a quick conversation with Jeff Farr on the town side, on Board of Finance, who's involved with asphalt. And I do believe that there's a database that Beta Group maintains for the town. So I think it's beneficial just to continue with this group to do it. In addition to the pricing, so a few years ago when the town did their inspection, so to speak, they had a base total cost of $23,000. The field inspection was about $12,000. For us, that's going to be $6,000 for the analysis and for the treatment selection and just for the plan moving forward. A few years ago, that was $5,000 on the town side. Beta Group is proposing $4,400 for the BOE, and for the capital planning component of it, $6,000 a few years ago for the town, and the proposed a slight increase of 65 by 580 to 65 to roughly $6,600. So right now we're looking at $17,000 just on the space project.
So just some background on that. So the Board of Finance 5 years ago, maybe, agreed to a study and financed a study of all the town roads. Jeff Farr led that on behalf of the Board of Finance, so he's the resident expert on it. And we chose Beta Group, and to Phil's comments, and they do have an extensive database on all the town roads, and they are the low bidder. And Phil, breaking that down, you and I've spoken about this. Breaking that bid down in the manner that you did kind of brings it into perspective. Because just on the gross amount seemed high relative to the amount of work that was done for the town, but now it's much better understood. So So that's the background on it. And the town, just from a vendor point of view, has been very, Think Beta Group has done an extremely good job, very informative, very easy to work with, and their results have been good.
So just want to point out two other components of the RFP. There's a component to do, if needed, to do a core testing. For the Beta Group, that's going to be $5,500. At the last meeting, Peter had discussed, to see if we can address the traffic congestion at the WIS, because this started kind of a little butt out at the WIS when you make the turn, so to swing out. So we wanted them to see if they just for them to give us a recommendation on that, if we choose to do that, and that's going to be $3,600. If we decide to go all in, we're looking at a total cost of $26,600. We do have enough money within our operating budget to cover these costs if we need to do the full thing. So what we're looking for is just consensus from the committee, just to move ahead with the project.
Peter, Melissa?
I'm okay. They did their homework. It's sound thinking. And
Yeah.
the parking lots need to be safe, and the WIS salient needs to be fixed. It's
Right.
It's just a nightmare for the parents in the morning. I'm one of them. So
Just one question, just on the ultimate paving of the parking lot, or whatever comes out of the study and the ultimate paving of the parking lot. Do we bid in concert with the town when they go out for their paving, because contract on a yearly basis, or do we do it independent of the town?
Last year, if from my memory, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was the first time that we have done any significant pavement. Would say any significant pavement. We did reach out to several companies last year, and it just so happened that Mike, remember the name of the company that we used last year?
Yeah, they're American Paving. They're the ones that actually do all the paving for the town.
Yeah, right.
We called in them and two other companies, and American Paving was just heads and tails, much less expensive, and they have a good reputation. So it just worked out really well.
So
Okay.
I guess going forward, Steve, to your point, once we have a recommendation from the Beta Group, we will definitely partner with the town so that so just to get the economies of scale, just having one bid.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely go ahead and do that. Just want to point out that on our capital budget for next year, fiscal 24, we do have the high school as the lot that we want to focus on. However, if the recommendation from Beta Group is something different, we may just need to change that.
That makes sense. Is
Yeah.
the traffic study that they're doing limited to the WIS?
Yes, that's the only one that we did put forward. And one of the reasons why we didn't make it a little bit more, we didn't expand that, was again, just going back to Lisa's point from our earlier discussion, just in terms of what direction are we heading towards, and just not knowing where we're heading. We didn't want to spend the money to do something broader.
Okay.
it's a safe test bed for larger plans later. I think that's a nice way of saying it. So it's another motivation for seeing what they can get done with some limited
And-
funds.
I'm familiar with what Peter's concerned about at the WIS myself, having driven through that line before. What this is limited to, it's that area, the traffic study I'm talking about is limited to that first area where you turn right to enter in.
Correct.
Is that also going to address, because what always gives me concern when I was doing that, is that you have the children walking and you've got the security guard over by the main entrance to the school who helps them cross there. But then when it comes to that second parking lot, they're just kind of crossing willy-nilly. Is this traffic study, did they do anything with respect to pedestrian safety?
Just Lisa, I'm sorry, Melissa, just clarify, which lot are you referring to?
The WIS.
Is that the one? Is that the staff? The big? So you leave the WIS, you come across the street. Is that the one you're referring to?
It's like the kids that would be walking to the admin fields.
Got
And
it. So they come across.
they cross where Stu stands, like in the front, and he's there to direct them. Then they get to that second parking lot. Oh, I guess the parking lot that's not the loop. And then they cross to get to the grass to walk over to the admin field. And that's where you have the double lanes of cars trying to turn around that one section. And there's no traffic guard helping them. And, it's kind of a blind turn for the cars on the left side. So I thought, I'm just wondering how comprehensive this analysis is, if it's just traffic patterns or if it considers pedestrian access at all. If there's anything we can do to make a pedestrian walkway clearly marked or, painted or something so that cars know to stop at a certain spot.
Yeah, understood. I think what the initial idea was only for the turn, but I think we will expand it. We'll have that discussion with them to see what they do recommend. I know that there is also plans to do the sidewalk as well.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen, but that's also in the works. But from our perspective, we'll definitely have the conversation with the beta group. And Melissa, just so you know, I'm not quite sure if you've been in a while. We always have a traffic attendant right at the intersection at the west. So from a safety perspective, for those students that are crossing, we do stop traffic and allow those students to safely cross. So we did see that last year, especially during COVID, where we had that increased number of walkers. So we always have someone there just to address that.
Okay.
No, but if you could include in this study exactly what Melissa is talking about, because the issue, I've seen this issue before when I was in the Board of Finance in Westport with one of the school's long lots where buses and children and cars all kind of converged in the same place. And it actually resulted in totally changing traffic pattern in front of what's now, I guess, an elementary school. But it's important because one person directing a lot of children, someone can dart out, and
yes,
there's just a lot of movement. So
yeah, we will expand that. We'll have the conversation with them, and we'll ensure that we have that taken care of.
that's great.
Okay.
Yep. Great.
I think you're the next item, Phil.
Yeah. So financial results. So we have I guess 2 months now. Last time we spoke was we discussed the results as of October, year-to-date October. We're now presenting the year-to-date result as of December. So from the last time we spoke to where we are now, we're looking at a change of approximately $514,000. The lion's share of that, we have some slight changes in salaries and slight changes also in the benefits. And with the benefits, this really relates to workers' compensation. And this is just budget to actual premiums. So we have a slight savings on a workers' compensation. We also have savings on our LAP and also on our athletic premium insurance, combined for about $24,000. Included in that amount is a premium, our equity distribution from KERMA for about $18,000. We have been receiving equity distribution from KERMA, for the past several years. The distributions really are not a guarantee. And they're really based whether or not they do this based on performance and pretty much the strength of the overall group. So the way KERMA operates is that we're part of, it's pretty much insurance pooling. So if whether or not there is a equity distribution really depends on the performance of the entire pool. Other changes that we have for this year, and Tracy's here if we have any questions about that, relates to different movements within tuition settlements and overall transportation for spread PPS. So what we have is we're pretty much projecting that we will not spend $430,000. I'm just going to stop and just let Tracy just kind of just talk about this.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. There are a couple of lines, as Phil said, that have some variability this year, more so than in other years. And I've talked a little bit about this actually in terms of planning for the fiscal 24 budget. Overall, we are seeing an increase in our out of district placements this year, our tuition line, the number of those placements. The reason that the cost is actually remaining relatively consistent with projected is that the cost of the placement can be highly variable. And we've had some movement down in terms of certain placement costs for certain students that's allowed us to essentially absorb these additional placements. As a result of that, there's an associated increase in transportation, right? If we have a greater number of students attending an out-of-district placement, that means we are providing transportation to more students, and that's leading to an increase in the cost. The third area that's had significant variability, more so than any year that I've been here, is the tuition settlement line. We've seen movement in that line for a variety of reasons, from families potentially moving out of district, needs of students changing. And so some of the costs that we anticipated having there are not being realized. So that's where the savings is largely coming from.
And what's well, you don't know, but I mean, what's the likelihood that changes during the year if if a child needs greater attention?
This year we've had more movement in terms of students transitioning either from in-district to out-of-district, or in a couple of cases this year, I have had students who are already in an out-of-district placement transitioning to a different out-of-district placement. So sometimes financially that's kind of a wash, but programmatically that's happening for specific reasons for that student.
And Tracy, in terms of where we are right now and how we we're planning for next year, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. So I had spoken in one of our initial budget meetings about the fact that both our tuition line and our tuition settlement line are based on, for fiscal year 24, are based on current placements or placements that are actively in process, meaning I'm scheduling a PPT with that family because we know that this is a next step. And that's, remember, at the time of budget development, which is really end of November, beginning of December. We did that specifically because we've received feedback from the boards, and I've also looked at trends over the last few years, and we're taking an increasingly more conservative approach to budgeting those lines. So for example, when I initially transitioned into the district, we were budgeting for actuals. We were setting aside some money for anticipated, meaning we really suspected something was going to happen with a particular student. And then we were also budgeting for contingency, meaning we have no specific need associated with that, but we're going to set aside money for a couple of placements just in case. We then, in the last couple of years, transitioned to budgeting for actuals and anticipated. So things that we know are definitely happening, and things that we have a sense might be coming down the pike. This year, we are budgeting specifically on actuals, things that we know are in place or are going to happen. We're not accounting for anticipated needs in the same way that maybe we have previously. There's a variety of reasons that we're doing this. I know I've spoken to all of the boards about the fact that these lines are highly variable. They are based on individual student needs that change over time. I can tell you that in the last couple of weeks, there have been movement in each of those lines. Not all of that movement has a budget implication. Like I said, sometimes we're transitioning from one placement to another, and financially it's irrelevant from a financial perspective, but very meaningful for that student's program. I monitor both of these lines pretty much daily. If there's anything as we continue to move through budget presentations over the next couple of months that I think warrants immediate attention, certainly I'll call that out.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Steve, you said something?
No, I said thank you.
Steve, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I remember those budgeting sessions with the contingency, line item and just having kind of the money there just in case, you had, I think one year, maybe prior before my time, there might have been a year where there were some very sudden and significant surprise kind of costs. Was that just not a successful strategy? I mean, when we were budgeting that way, did that money just either end up getting put back in the budget, wasn't utilized in that way? Is that why we've gone away from that model, or are we doing this more because everything's so variable? The only thing that we know for concrete are the actuals, so let's just stick with the actuals.
I think we're trying to be mindful of the fact that, yes, there is variability in these lines. And the reality is we're looking at a surplus right now in these lines using some of the strategies that we've used previously. We're really trying to get as close to what we think the actual number will be, to be as transparent as possible with the boards and the public. Any year we could have 10 students move into district who have unique needs, and that would be a game changer. I can't possibly anticipate that. The reverse could happen. We could have students who, move across country because their families need to relocate, and the money for those placements is no longer a part of the budget. So the only thing that we can look at and know is what is actually happening. And I think the closer we get to that actual, knowing that we'll continue to monitor and communicate as soon as we have potential movement in either direction, is just the best way for us to move forward.
Yeah, and I think you're right when you're in a situation with the surplus, but I think what my memory is going back to is years where we were running a deficit, and then you had on top of that, well, I shouldn't say a deficit, but we were behind in what we had anticipated, and then you had extra need develop without notice and without planning on top of that, and so there wasn't any surplus to help manage that. And I think that was the genesis of the contingency. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think let's monitor it and see how this goes this year. I just don't want to be in a situation where, we're caught off guard.
And just to address the concerns in terms of getting caught off guard, right? I think we have conversation. We do have a standing meeting, myself and Tracy, where we talk about what's going on pretty much on a weekly basis. Again, it's variable, right? Things change, and we can never predict where things are going to be. We can make a decision for next year. We have reduced those two lines going into fiscal 24 by roughly $500,000. We can make a decision, or the board can make a decision that we can maybe reduce that number in terms of the reduction, and have a little bit in terms of a contingency. But I'm not quite sure, right? What from my perspective, I'm always mindful, because there's always this perception that we're over budgeted, right? And that's never the case. We plan our budget pretty much a year out, and we're using the best information that we can, and just keeping abreast of everything that's going on, not only in SPED PPS, but just the various needs of all of our students, and trying to make those best decisions for those students a year out. So it's a balancing act, right? And so we've tried all those approaches. Some years it has worked out, but things have changed since COVID, right? Where you just don't know how it's going to be. And for the past 3 years, we've had surpluses in these lines, but for all the reasons that Tracy has that Tracy has mentioned. So it's just, where do we go? Where would we go from this point? Like, do we create a reserve going forward? So I don't know.
No, I'm not advocating creating a reserve again. I think if this is working, and then let's keep going with it. I just wanted to see what the rationale behind not having the contingency fund anymore was. That's all.
Okay, good. And Stephen, and you have some background from the Board of Finance. I'm not quite sure what your take is.
It's the one area of the budget that's uncontrollable. I mean, it's controllable in that we can attempt to control the expenses, but it's uncontrollable in terms of if a child shows up, a special needs child shows up that we haven't anticipated, we have to address that. So essentially what we're dealing with is, do we run a surplus, a potential surplus in our budget? Or if we find ourselves in a situation where there is a large unexpected need for capital, do we go to the Board of Finance for a supplemental appropriation? That's essentially what you're talking about, Phil.
Correct.
Well, we have a new chairman of the Board of Finance as of last night, I understand, Mike Imber. It's a conversation we should have with them. I mean, we haven't, put the stamp of approval yet on our own budget, and it is the big part of the budget that is out of our control, and we have to provide the services regardless. So I've reached out to Mike, suggesting that we have a we have a call now that he's the new chairman, and we should discuss that.
Okay. Are we good? Can we move on?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tracy.
We did have increases in tuition. We do have a larger population in our preschool, so we're seeing some additional revenues for the preschool. In addition to that, our non-resident tuition, we do have, I think we have 3 new students in that's included in tuition. And it's a combination, right? We have people who are moved, and then we have people who are in the process of building a house in Weston. So they're included here. So we may have some variability with those numbers. So that's pretty much where we are in terms of the month-over-month change. So with all that said, where are we looking right now? Right now, we're looking at a surplus of $719,000. I did provide just a quick analysis of the makeup of that surplus. And what you'll notice is that the lion's share of that is really the items that we just discussed for tuition and settlements, for all the reasons that Tracy mentioned. In addition to that, there are items, we have slight salary savings. We have some credits that we receive for transportation. And also we have savings that we have from a fleet reduction from going from 22 down to 21 buses. So there are all the items that we have here, just to paint the picture right, is not because we have over budgeted, but because of all the items that we haven't anticipated. And that's what's making up the surplus. I do believe that we're very diligent, as we plan our budget, where we start from zero and build our way up from that point. So I know there's a perception that, we over budget. So I just wanted to kind of paint the picture as to what it is that has gotten us to this point.
Thank you for that, Phil. I don't personally have a perception of over budgeting.
No, either.
Yeah, I think that's really not so much for the board or the committee. It's really more so for the public.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Well, all we can do is just explain, I think in your updates every month, what you've been doing.
Yep. Next is Internal Services Fund, and we are in good shape in Internal Services Fund. Just a reminder, we are funding Internal Services Fund starting for this fiscal year. And for the budget for next year, I did not propose, based on what the trend is, I'm not recommending any increase in what the projected claims will be. I think we're at a good place, just from a year to year. So I think the number that we have, I think it's like 434,000 is fairly adequate to address both claims and admin costs. So that is it. Oh, real quick. And I know we have to jump off. So as we look at our budget, right, in terms of where we're trying to go for fiscal 24, we have expenditure there for the reading initiative. If the reading initiative is going to be approved, we can repurchase those books. And I think we're looking at about $300,000. So we can pre-purchase it. We can use our current surplus to address that. So that's one way that we can use to mitigate the budget. Another thing as well, which is not in the budget, is that this reading initiative is a multi-year, it's really a 2-year plan. The cost that we have in our budget only addresses the K2 for $300,000. There's a 3.5 component as well, and that's going to be close to $300,000 as well. So what we can do, or what the board can do, instead of phasing it over 2 years, is that we can maybe address the entire initiative in 1 year and use the surplus to address that.
That's great.
And that's all I have for an update.
That's really good. Thanks, Phil. That's actually, from a budgeting point of view, would be a good, since it's already in the tax base.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I agree. It's a good idea, Phil.
Is there anything else, or should we?
I think those are all the items that I have today.
Thank you, Phil. I'm down to 1 minute here, so if we gotta have a vote, let's do it now.
Yeah, let's approve the minutes for November.
Okay.
Yep.
I move to approve the committee meeting minutes from November.
All those in favor? Aye. And then the last is a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Great, thank you. Peter, second.
I second,
All those in favor? Aye. Great.
or have a good
Have a nice
long
long weekend.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Enjoy the holiday.
Thank you, everybody.